Stop scrolling, stop settling, and listen closely. Because if you're tired of being just another option, another guy she walks all over, this is the most important message you'll ever hear. Most men think that when a woman pulls away, when she goes silent, when her texts dry up, it means she's lost interest. They think she's moved on, that she doesn't care. They panic. They chase. They beg for attention. And every single time they lose. They lose their power, their dignity, and her respect. But what if I told you that her silence isn't a sign of disinterest, but a calculated test? What if her distance isn't her moving on, but her waiting to see if you'll fall into her trap just like every other man before you? What if her withdrawal is actually an invitation for you to prove you're different? Today, you're not just going to learn a trick or a tactic. You're going to undergo a complete mindset revolution. You're going to discover why the strongest men don't react to her games, they dismantle them. Why her silence isn't your weakness, but your greatest weapon. Why walking away calmly, confidently, and without a single backward glance makes you not just irresistible, but utterly untouchable. This isn't just about winning her back, or even about winning her over. This is about winning yourself back. It's about seizing control of your emotions, your worth, and your entire life. Imagine this: she's gone cold. She's distant, she's playing mind games, expecting you to crumble, to chase, to validate her importance. But you stay composed. You remain unfazed. You disappear from her emotional radar. And watch closely, because slowly, inevitably, the dynamic flips. Doubt begins to gnaw at her. She starts to second-guess everything she thought she knew about you. Was she wrong? Did she misjudge you? Is he actually moving on? That gnawing uncertainty, that rising panic in her chest, that's your power. That's the exact moment she starts chasing you. By the end of this journey, you'll possess the blueprint to turn her tests into undeniable proof of your strength, to make her deeply regret ever taking you for granted, and to finally break free from the emotional chains of someone else's whims. This is more than strategy. It's a total re-engineering of your psychological framework that will make you untouchable, not just in dating, but in every single facet of your existence. Lock in, because if you absorb and implement what I'm about to reveal, you will never chase anyone again. You will never again settle for scraps of attention. You will reclaim your power, your inherent dignity, and your unwavering self-respect. And she will realize the profound magnitude of what she lost, but by then, you will already be a distant, powerful memory. Most men are stuck in a relentless cycle, a self-defeating loop, where their emotional well-being is dictated by the unpredictable actions of a woman. They measure their worth by her replies, their happiness by her attention, and their future by her presence. They fall into the oldest trap in the book: reactive chasing. Consider the typical scenario. She pulls back, she goes quiet, her texts become sporadic, and suddenly, his entire world is thrown into disarray. He's glued to his phone. Every notification a potential lifeline, every silence a stab of anxiety. He scrolls through old conversations, dissecting every word, every emoji, desperately searching for a clue, a sign of what went wrong. He overthinks, he panics, he convinces himself that if he doesn't act now, she'll vanish forever. And so he does the one thing that guarantees his defeat: he reacts. He double texts, he calls, he asks if she's okay, he apologizes for perceived wrongs, he tries to force a connection that isn't there. This isn't strength. It's desperation disguised as effort, and women consciously or unconsciously sense it. They see it, and they lose respect for it. Modern relationships beneath the surface are a delicate dance of power dynamics. The moment you react out of fear or desperation, you surrender control. The moment you chase, you diminish your value. The moment you expose how much her absence affects you, you hand her all the leverage. You become predictable, and predictable men are rarely pursued. The most powerful individuals, whether in the cutthroat world of business, the intricate landscape of relationships, or the relentless pursuit of personal mastery, share one fundamental trait: they do not react. They observe. They analyze. They adapt. And when someone attempts to play games to test their resolve, they do the one thing that shatters the script. They go silent. That's the core principle we're dissecting today: the illusion of control. She expects you to react, she pulls back. Her replies become delayed, then non-existent. She morphs from readily available to suddenly distant, cold, and elusive. Remember those good morning texts? Gone. The spontaneous plans? replaced with vague excuses about being busy. Yet a curious thing happens. She still views your social media stories. She subtly ensures you see her out, living her best life, looking radiant, seemingly unbothered. Why? Because she's orchestrating a play, and you're meant to be the star performer in her expected drama. She's waiting for it, that predictable reaction. That tiny crack in your composure the moment you finally slip in text. Is everything okay? Or what's wrong? That right there is her moment of victory. The second you react, she confirms her control. She knows she still has you on a leash, emotionally tethered, and thus, she can continue her game of testing your limits, pushing to see how much of her manufactured absence you'll endure before you finally break. And most men break. They succumb to the anxiety. Their phones become extensions of their nervous systems, constantly checked for a flicker of her name. They replay every past interaction, dissecting it for flaws, for where they messed up. They are gripped by the fear that if they don't act now, she'll be gone forever. So they reach out. They double text. They apologize for things they didn't even do. They shower her with attention, hoping to lure her back into the comfortable predictability of their pursuit. But here's the stark reality. She doesn't respect this. She expects it. And when she sees it, her interest, like a fragile flame, flickers and dies. A woman plays these games only with a man whose value to her is still uncertain, a man she's still evaluating, a man she hasn't yet granted her full respect. She's probing, trying to ascertain if you're the kind of man whose self-worth is contingent on her validation. The moment you confirm that it is, the game is over, not in your favor. Now she's not just pulling back. She's running, propelled by the realization that you've just communicated in the clearest possible terms, that her attention is your lifeline, that without it, you are adrift. Women do not chase men who crumble. They chase men who are unshakable, men whose presence or absence makes no discernible difference to their inner equilibrium. She believes she has you figured out. She thinks she's seen this narrative unfold countless times before. She anticipates your reaction, your desperate attempts to prove your worth, to pull her back. But when that script is thrown out, when you don't react, when you instead embrace a profound, unwavering silence, when you demonstrate that her absence holds no sway over you, that's when the subtle, insidious seed of doubt begins to germinate within her. This doubt, this quiet, unsettling uncertainty, is your secret weapon. Doubt erodes her confidence. Doubt forces her to question every assumption she held about you. Doubt makes her wonder, did I misjudge him? Is he actually moving on? Did I just lose a man who was genuinely worth keeping? And doubt, potent and persuasive, is what ultimately compels her to return. However, here's the profound irony most men fail to grasp. By the time she reaches this realization, by the time she's compelled to seek you out, it's often too late. Because the man she was testing, the version of you who would have chased, who would have crumbled under the oppressive weight of her silence, he no longer exists. You, through your newfound emotional mastery, have transcended into the one thing she feared most, a man she cannot control. The shattering silence. Your non-reaction breaks. Her control silence is a force of nature, primal and terrifying. It's why people instinctively fill voids with noise, why social media thrives, why we drown ourselves in endless distractions rather than confront the stark reality of being alone with our own thoughts. When you consciously choose silence, you force her into that very confrontation. She expected you to chase. She expected you to validate her worth. She expected you to ceaselessly prove yourself deserving of her attention. Now the tables have irrevocably turned. She's the one compulsively checking her phone, far more frequently than you ever did. She's meticulously searching for any faint signal that you still care. She's replaying old conversations, scrolling through your past interactions, desperately trying to pinpoint the exact moment she lost her emotional grip on you. She might attempt a performance feigning indifference. She might post pictures with other men, orchestrate elaborate outings with friends, ensuring her best life is prominently displayed for your consumption. But beneath the veneer, a desperate anxiety pulses. She's waiting to see if her performance worked, waiting to see if she still possesses that magnetic pull over you. But when the eagerly anticipated notification never appears, when you steadfastly refuse to react, when you make no discernible effort to reclaim her, that's when the genuine panic sets in. Because now, she's the one grappling with powerlessness, The same agonizing tension you once felt waiting for her reply she now experiences. The same gnawing uncertainty you once harbored about her waning interest, she now projects onto you. And that fear, that primal fear of loss, is the catalyst that compels her to return. But here is where the vast majority of men stumble, making a critical, oft-repeated mistake. She will send a text. It will be casual, almost innocuous, designed solely to gauge your response to see if you'll bite the bait. She won't confess her longing. She won't admit her error. She won't offer a heartfelt apology. She'll simply dispatch something vague, something safe. Hey, hope you're doing well. How have you been? This, make no mistake, is the ultimate test, and most men fail spectacularly. They see the text, their hearts leap with foolish hope. This is it, they exclaim inwardly. She realized her mistake. She wants me back. They reply with lightning speed, eager to rekindle the conversation, believing they've triumphed. But the instant she observes that swift, eager response, she knows. She knows she still holds you captive, and just as quickly as she appeared, she vanishes again. Because her return was never about you. It was about reaffirming her ego. She merely needed to confirm that you were still waiting, still accessible. And now that she possesses that confirmation, your actual presence is no longer required. This is precisely why the most potent response is no response at all. If her desire to return is genuine, she will invest true effort. She won't resort to a lazy breadcrumb text. She will unequivocally communicate her regret. But until that profound shift occurs, maintain your unwavering silence. Because silence cultivates doubt, and doubt, undeniably, is what makes her chase. And here's the truly empowering revelation. By the time she's finally ready to embark on that chase, you will have already transcended. Because your journey wasn't about winning her back. It was about reclaiming yourself. You've meticulously built a life independent of her validation. You've sharpened your focus, sculpted your physique, pursued your ambitions, and cultivated an inner fortitude that renders her presence utterly irrelevant to your self-worth. By the time she finally comprehends the irreplaceable value she discarded, by the time she's ready to demonstrate the effort she previously withheld, she will find herself chasing a ghost, the ghost of the man who once yearned for her, now replaced by a man who needs no one. The spiral of self-doubt. She will start to question everything. She once believed she had an infinite well of time, a bottomless reservoir of your attention. She was convinced you would perpetually remain, waiting, hoping, clinging to the periphery of her awareness, poised to leap at the faintest glimmer of her interest. She meticulously constructed a narrative where, regardless of her actions, her protracted silences, or the intricate tests she devised, you would always be there, a constant, predictable fixture. Now, the silence from your end is not merely loud, it is deafening. Something fundamental shifts within her. A subtle, insidious doubt begins to germinate, almost imperceptible at first, but inexorably growing. It starts as a fleeting thought. Why hasn't he reached out? A whisper of curiosity. Then it morphs into a more unsettling question. Has he actually moved on? The whisper intensifies into a palpable tension. Finally, it crystallizes into a stark realization. Was I wrong about him? And that tension spirals into something far more potent. Fear. Fear that she miscalculated. Fear that her assumptions were catastrophically incorrect. Fear that she irretrievably lost control. Nothing destabilizes a woman more profoundly than the chilling realization that she may have allowed something truly valuable to slip through her fingers. In her constructed reality, men are meant to be predictable. Her expectation is that if she withdraws, your natural Pavlovian response is to chase with greater fervor. She anticipates your struggle, your pleas, your relentless efforts to rectify things to win her back. But you defied the script. You remained silent. You meticulously eradicated your presence from her emotional landscape. You presented her with the one thing she never anticipated, the unknown. And the unknown is the most formidable force in the universe. When something is cloaked in uncertainty, it becomes an all-consuming obsession. It's the psychological gravitational pull that compels people to check their phones compulsively for a response, the irresistible allure of a cliffhanger in a movie, the addictive thrill of the chase itself. The human mind abhors unanswered questions. Now she is the one desperately scrambling for answers. She begins to obsessively monitor your social media, not just casually but with a relentless, scrutinizing gaze. She's searching for any alteration, new photos, new connections, a discernible shift in your energy. She might refrain from liking your posts, but rest assured she is watching. She might not send a text, but her mind is consumed by thoughts of you. And the longer your steadfast silence persists, the deeper the doubt cleaves into her once unassailable confidence. She confides in her friends, the very same ones who once confidently assured her, "He'll come back." They always do. The same ones who scoffed at your predictable pursuit. But now even they are starting to question, because the longer you refuse to react, the more undeniable it becomes. You no longer need her. And that truth, raw and unyielding, terrifies her, because now the axis of power has irrevocably shifted. Now she is the one grappling with self-doubt, and nothing sends a woman spiraling faster. She begins to meticulously replay every past interaction, every conversation, every glance, desperately searching for the precise moment where she erred. And the more she dissects it, the more an uncomfortable truth begins to surface, a truth she fiercely resisted admitting. She took you for granted. She presumed her hold on you was unbreakable. She assumed she could always return whenever convenience dictated. She assumed you were merely another notch on her belt, another desperate seeker of her validation. But now she isn't so certain. This burgeoning doubt does not remain confined to the recesses of her mind. It overflows into her actions. Suddenly, she begins to tentatively test the waters. Her pride still prevents a direct admission of longing, but she'll deploy subtle signals, throwing out delicate feelers, seeking any faint indication that she still retains access to you. She might like an old photograph. She might dispatch a casual, innocuous text. She might comment on something entirely random. Perhaps she'll even accidentally send a message intended for someone else, purely to elicit a response from you. And the weak man, the man still imprisoned by his reactive conditioning, he devours the bait. He sees the minuscule breadcrumb, his heart leaps with renewed hope. "This is it," he proclaims. "She finally realized she wants me back." And the very instant he reaches out, the moment he grants her even the most minuscule indication that he is still waiting, still yearning, she retreats, because now she possesses her answer. Her true desire wasn't a genuine reconnection. It was merely a confirmation that she still held power, that you were still within her emotional grasp. Once confirmed, she vanishes again. Her motive was never about you. It was always unequivocally about her control. This is where the majority of men suffer their ultimate defeat. They allow her fleeting curiosity to shatter their resolve. They mistake her surveillance for genuine interest. They delude themselves into believing that her mere observation signifies her readiness to return. But observation is not chasing. Liking is not regretting. A casual text is not valuing. A woman who genuinely regrets losing you will not offer breadcrumbs. She will make her intentions unequivocally clear. She will not send a nebulous "hey." She will declare, "I made a mistake." She will not merely like your post. She will communicate, "I miss you." She will not patiently await your reply. She will fight for your attention, just as you once fought for hers. And until that profound, unmistakable shift occurs, maintain your unwavering silence. Because silence fuels questioning, and questioning ultimately is what propels her chase. But more profoundly, questioning is what liberates you, because by the time she finally musters the courage to admit her error, by the time she's prepared to relinquish her ego and articulate the unvarnished truth, by the time she truly lets go of her pride, you will have already moved on. This entire time, while she was consumed by self-doubt, while she searched for answers, while she wrestled with her own mind, debating her mistake, you were building. You were relentlessly focusing on your own growth, hitting the gym, crushing your goals, leveling up every conceivable aspect of your existence. You weren't idly waiting for her to determine your worth. You had already become untouchable. And that, precisely, is the most profound regret she will ever experience. Not just losing you, but losing the elevated version of you she never even had the privilege to meet. The unraveling plan. When she tries to pull you back, she fundamentally dislikes this new reality. She despises the sensation of having lost, of having miscalculated, of having committed a grievous error, of having allowed something intrinsically valuable to simply walk away. In her carefully constructed narrative, she was always the architect of control, the one who dictated the ebb and flow of your dynamic. Her belief was that she could effortlessly withdraw, create distance, and you predictably would react. You would be the one frantically attempting to mend the rift, to win her back, to reassert your interest. That was the immutable plan. But then something wholly unforeseen occurred. You vanished, and that above all else shatters her composure. It invades her mind in a way nothing else can. It injects a potent dose of uncertainty, and uncertainty is the one condition she cannot abide. Because uncertainty means she has no discernible idea where she stands with you. It means her once firm grip on your emotions has irrevocably slipped. It means she may have, in a very real and terrifying sense, actually lost you, and that, unequivocally, was never part of her meticulously crafted plan. She assumed she had an abundance of time. She assumed she could test your resolve, witness your chase, keep you tantalizingly close enough to know you were still present. But the longer your resolute silence extends, the more acutely she begins to feel the oppressive weight of her own past decisions. She begins to profoundly experience the stark absence of your once unwavering attention. And what is the universal human reaction when people sense the imminent loss of something they once believed was endlessly accessible? They panic, yet she will not overtly declare her panic. She will not phone you to confess her profound regret. She will not dispatch a lengthy, emotionally laden message replete with apologies for her past behavior. Such an act would necessitate relinquishing control, admitting defeat. Instead, she will resort to her tried-and-true method. She will test you, because in her estimation, she needs to confirm one paramount truth. Do you still care? This is the genesis of the first test. It will be subtle. Perhaps she watches your stories again. Perhaps she likes an old forgotten picture. Perhaps she sends a diminutive, vague, and utterly safe text. Hey, hope you're doing well. Just saw something that reminded me of you. It is neither direct nor overtly obvious, but it is undeniably a test. She yearns to observe your reaction, to ascertain if you remain emotionally susceptible, if you are still waiting, if she still wields control over your mental landscape. And the weak man, still chained to his old patterns, he eagerly devours the bait. He sees the message, his heart surges with misplaced hope, and he instantly replies. He convinces himself, this is it. This is the moment she realizes she wants me back. But the very instant she registers his swift response, she knows. She knows she never truly lost him. She knows he remains hers for the taking whenever the whim strikes. She knows she was never in any genuine peril of losing him. And just as swiftly as she materialized, she evaporates once more. Because her outreach was never about missing him. It was solely about validating her lingering power. But if you steadfastly refuse to react, if you leave her message on read, if you unequivocally decline the bait, that's when the genuine panic truly takes root. Because now she possesses no answers. Now your internal world is an impenetrable mystery. Now she unequivocally feels the acute sting of loss. So she will escalate. She will intensify her efforts. Perhaps she dispatches another message, this time slightly longer. Perhaps invoking a shared memory she knows will resonate emotionally. Perhaps she crafts an indirect social media post, meticulously designed to elicit a reaction. Perhaps she even goes further, subtly engaging with other men online purely to observe your response. She will deploy every tactic within her arsenal to extract a reaction from you, because a reaction in her lexicon signifies influence. A reaction means she can still reel you back in at her convenience, but this precisely is where you achieve ultimate victory. You do not react, you do not reply, you refuse to engage in her elaborate game, because you possess an acute understanding of her motives. You know this isn't about genuine reconciliation. You know this isn't about her truly valuing you. You know this is solely about her pride, her ego, her insatiable craving for validation, and that is something you will never, ever grant her again. The moment you cease to be her emotional safety net, the moment she profoundly experiences the definitive loss of you, is the precise moment she is compelled to make a monumental decision. Does she genuinely fight for you, or does she grudgingly accept your irreversible departure? And here's the unvarnished truth. If her initial investment in you was superficial, she will simply walk away, never to return. Because she never truly claimed you. She merely enjoyed the comforting illusion of possessing you. But if her regret for losing you is genuine, if she truly comprehends the magnitude of her mistake, if she finally comes to terms with having squandered a man of undeniable value, she will not offer mere breadcrumbs. She will not send a vague text. She will not broadcast indirect hints. She will manifest. She will unequivocally declare her regret. She will communicate her desire outright. She will fight for your attention with the same ferocity you once displayed for hers. And when that profound shift occurs, The power unequivocally resides with you. You decide if she is worthy of re-entry into your life. You decide if she has demonstrably earned another chance. You decide if her presence even aligns with your elevated future anymore. Because by the time she reaches that critical juncture, by the time her desperation compels her to genuinely prove herself to you, you will have already moved on. And that precisely is the most profound lesson of all. The moment you cease chasing, the moment you withdraw your attention, the moment you unequivocally refuse to play by her archaic rules, you metamorphose into the man she was unconsciously yearning for all along. But by the time she awakens to this truth, you will already be a distant, powerful memory. That is the true visage of power. That is the bedrock of genuine self-respect. And that above all else is why she will never, ever forget you. The untouchable man. Mastering emotional detachment. Everything changes the moment you master emotional detachment. Everything. The instant you cease to crave external approval, the moment you abandon the futile chase, the moment you stop striving to convince her of your inherent worth, you achieve a state that most individuals will never experience. True freedom. Detachment is the apex of power. It is the fundamental distinction between men who meticulously sculpt their lives on their own terms, and men who spend their existence in perpetual reaction to the emotional whims of others. It is the singular skill that separates those who effortlessly attain their desires from life, and those who endlessly ponder why their efforts bear no fruit. It is the transformative mindset shift that elevates a man from being controlled to being the unequivocal master of his own destiny. Fail to master this and you will forever remain a captive to someone else's decisions. You will remain the man tethered to his phone, endlessly awaiting her reply. You will remain the man consumed by anxiety because her attention mysteriously evaporated. You will remain the one agonizing, "What did I do wrong?" While she effortlessly glides through her life utterly unbothered. She is not overthinking. You are. She is not obsessing. You are. She is not suffering. You are. And why? Because you have been conditioned to believe that your worth is intrinsically linked to her presence, that the only path to validation lies in winning her back. But here is the brutal, liberating truth. You do not need to win her back. You do not need to win her over. You do not need to prove a solitary thing to her. What you need unequivocally is to let her go, because the very instant you do, you reclaim every single ounce of power you inadvertently relinquished. Women do not chase emotionally weak men. They do not pursue the desperate. They do not pursue those who are in constant pursuit of their validation. They pursue strength. They pursue certainty. They pursue the man who embodies an unshakable self-sufficiency. Because the moment you cease to need her, you become a challenge. You become a rare commodity. You become the man she profoundly regrets losing. Not the man she comfortably discarded. Not the man who pleaded for another chance. Not the man who relentlessly dispatched texts, yearning for a reply, but the man who walked away, decisively, and never once looked back. That is the man who will invade her thoughts in the quiet solitude of the night. That is the man against whom every future suitor will be measured and found wanting. That is the man she will eternally wonder what if about. But by the time she reaches this agonizing realization, you will have already moved beyond her orbit. That is the profound essence of emotional detachment. Not to engage in manipulative games, but to internalize the absolute truth that her validation is utterly superfluous to your inherent wholeness. Most men navigate life in a perpetual quest for external approval. They yearn for someone to affirm their sufficiency, to validate their worth, to confirm their value. But what happens when you cease this relentless pursuit of external validation? What happens when you no longer need someone else to declare your worth? What happens when you gaze into the mirror and recognize that every single thing you require already resides within you? That is the moment the world profoundly shifts. That is when others begin to accord you a fundamentally different level of respect. That is when you cease being merely an option and ascend to the status of an undisputed choice. Because the man who doesn't require her validation is precisely the man she craves most. The man who isn't seeking attention is the man who effortlessly commands it. The man who possesses absolute control over his emotions is the man who dominates every environment he enters. And here's the most exquisite part. Once you master emotional detachment, its benefits extend far beyond her. It permeates every single aspect of your existence. Every relationship, every friendship, every business negotiation, every human interaction you will ever encounter. Because when people inevitably realize that they cannot shake you, that they cannot manipulate you, that they cannot ensnare you in their emotional games, they begin to treat you with an entirely new echelon of respect. They begin to perceive you as someone of undeniable value. They begin to acknowledge that you are fundamentally distinct from the vast majority, and they will guard against losing that. Because in the contemporary world, weakness is pervasive. Most people are chasing. Most people are desperate for attention. Most people are in desperate need of external validation. But not you. Because you have unequivocally mastered emotional detachment. And that singular achievement renders you utterly untouchable. This transcends mere relationships. This transcends dating. This is about power, the innate power to decisively walk away, the unyielding power to command your own emotional landscape, the profound power to meticulously sculpt your life without the slightest deference to anyone else's approval. The vast majority of men will never attain this power. They will remain perpetually ensnared in the suffocating cycle of seeking validation. They will remain forever controlled by the chaotic currents of their own emotions. They will remain forever reacting rather than leading. But the moment you consciously choose to detach, the moment you resolve to cease playing by her antiquated rules, the moment you declare that no one's validation is requisite for your inherent worth, that, precisely, is the moment you metamorphose into the man you were always destined to be. And the most triumphant aspect of all, by the time she finally comprehends the magnitude of her loss, by the time she writhes in regret for walking away, by the time she is finally compelled to chase you, you won't even care anymore. That is the quintessential victory, because the genuine prize was never her fleeting attention. The unparalleled prize was the formidable, self-sufficient, and utterly untouchable man you became when you stopped seeking it. If you're ready to become truly untouchable, to seize absolute command of your life, to embody the man who needs no validation from anyone, then subscribe to this channel right now. Support this movement, because in doing so, you contribute to liberating countless others from the debilitating mindset that keeps them weak and dependent. And before you leave, I demand that every single one of you type this into the comments: I am untouchable. Write it. Type it, own it, because from this very moment forward, that is precisely who you are.